Hi friends, and welcome to a new video. My name is Angela. Thanks for joining me. Today I have a recommendation video. I'm going to share with you a number of books that you might have read and something else similar to that book that you might like to read. So it's if you like this, then you'll probably like that kind of video. Sometimes you may have read a book and you want to read another book that is similar. It could be that the writing style is similar, there's a similar trope, theme, something that is a little bit more specific than just the genre that you're reading. So with me today I have 8 books. I'll share a book that you probably have read and a book that I think you would really like. I have some classics, memoirs, non-fiction, new releases, and I hope you enjoy this. It's going to be a nice and snazzy video to help you get on with your reading. I did not put these books in order, which was a terrible mistake on my part. Okay. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. It is a classic and it is the inspiration for many, many other books. It has those classic, what are now classic themes of gender identity, social class and hierarchy, marriage and social status, enemies to lovers romance, and a lot of personal growth. So my recommendation, if you like Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, is to pick up My Brilliant Career by Miles Franklin. These were written almost 100 years apart, with Pride and Prejudice being set in Regency England and My Brilliant Career being set in colonial Australia. There are differences in tone, with Pride and Prejudice being very polished and romantically minded. And in My Brilliant Career, our heroine is much more raw and even more defiant than Lizzie Bennet is. However, both of our heroines in these books are young women who are single and are trying to navigate the restrictive rules of society. My Brilliant Career has a long history in Australia. So Miles Franklin wrote this when she was 16 years old, and it is said to be autobiographical of her life, although she was adamant that it was not. So much so that I think she even put some sort of stop on any further publications while she was still alive. She didn't want that comparison to continue to be drawn. My Brilliant Career is narrated by Sibylla Melvin, who is a young woman, 16 years old, who, like Lizzie Bennet, resists the rules of society to get married for security. She wants much more from life. My Brilliant Career is at its heart a coming-of-age story as Sibylla finds her way in the world. There is romance that sneaks up on her. There is a lot of discussion in here about the belief in marriage just being a social expectation, and both Lizzie and Sibylla resisting that and wanting more, but having to continually step over these class-based obstacles as they seek their independence. The writing style is very Jane Austen-esque. It really reminded me of Jane Austen's writing. There's a lot of inner dialogue, very character driven. I think that you would love this, and it is a great insight into colonial Australia as well, which is something that you may not be looking for when you're looking for a Jane Austen-like book. Heartburn by Nora Ephron. There is a good chance that anyone who loves reading has come across this book at some point. It is a very sharp and witty autobiographical novel that really blends humour with heartbreak, and it has an element of food in here as well, because our main character is a cookbook author. So I think that anyone who likes Heartburn will probably like Heartbake by Charlotte Rhee. This is a memoir. It's a memoir / cookbook, and it really does blend a little bit of humour with real moments of reflection and a lot of cooking and recipes. So Heartbake by Charlotte Rhee is about Charlotte's journey post-divorce, as she shares how cooking and food became quite a therapeutic outlet for her as she tried to rebuild her life after that divorce. And like Heartburn, food is used as a real metaphor for expressing emotion and for healing. Ephron is a little more sharp in her story, her book, while Charlotte's memoir is a little more tender and earnest as she reflects on her previous marriage and what it's going to look like for her moving forward. There is a really delicious element in here of humour that I was laughing out loud at quite a few times. So Charlotte is post-divorce, she's moved into a new place by herself. It is the middle of the COVID pandemic and she starts dating again, and she's using online dating. So there's a lot of really interesting failures that come with that online dating that is quite humorous. So that's why I see a lot of similarities beyond the food element of this. It has a lot of recipes and it is really reflective, and I really did enjoy it. So if you loved Heartburn, I would suggest that you give Heartbake by Charlotte Rhee a go. My next recommendation is for people who really enjoyed Northwoods by Daniel Mason. Northwoods is a really interesting book that is quite unique, so it's hard to summarize it in a single sentence, but it really does talk about the cycle of life, and it's in a single setting in a natural environment. But my recommendation is, if you liked Northwoods, then I would suggest that you look at Dusk by Robbie Arnott. Northwoods spans centuries, 3 centuries, and multiple perspectives of inhabitants of this house in this woodland in Massachusetts. And I think it really does explore the connection between humans and the natural world, so much so that in Northwoods, a couple of the scenes were actually from the perspective of the natural world around this house. But in Dusk, it's a little bit more linear, and it's set in Tasmania, most likely. We never actually get told where it is set in this book. I'm betting my money on the Highlands in Tasmania. In the 19th century, so it's around colonial Australia times. In Dusk, we follow twins Iris and Floyd as they join the hunt for a mythical puma that is starting to kill people. It's been living in the Highlands for years and no one has really seen it, but it has now started to go beyond killing some animals and starting to kill people, so there's a bounty on its head. The similarity between these two books, in my opinion, is the magical realism. The elements of time and memory also come into both of these books, but the most significant is the element of nature and how humans interact with that natural world. And while nature is a bit of a silent witness in Northwoods, it is an active player in Dusk. It is a big character in this book. And I think Arnott did a wonderful job writing it. It is such beautiful writing. Both would be considered probably historical literary fiction. If you liked Northwoods, go for Dusk. It's incredible. And there is this element of this cat, the puma, in both Dusk and in Northwoods, which is interesting. So the fourth recommendation, and the last one in this video, is for people who have read When Calls the Heart by Janette Oake. And this is such a tender, beautiful romance story that I really loved. I love the TV show just as much as I love the books. And in that story, it starts off with our protagonist, Elizabeth, who has had a very cultured upbringing and takes up a position of teaching in the Canadian frontier. Elizabeth is really ill-prepared. She comes to realise she's very ill-prepared when she arrives at the town, because not only is she unaware of the challenges of the frontier itself, but the cultural differences. So she does her best to care for these children that she is teaching, and she finds love with a Canadian Mountie. So I think if you like When Calls the Heart, you will love Tisha, the wonderful true love story of a young teacher in the Alaskan wilderness as told to Robert Specht. This is a little unique in the sense that it reads like a novel, but it is a memoir about the life of Anne Hobbs. So while When Calls the Heart is fiction, this book is a memoir, but it reads like a novel. It is phenomenal and will sweep you away to the harsh frontier of Alaska. I was really surprised to learn that Tisha was actually published the year after When Calls the Heart in 1984. And of course, When Calls the Heart is set in Canada and Tisha is set in 1920s Alaska. But they share a lot of similar themes. In Tisha, Anne is 19 years old when she takes up a teaching position in a small gold mining town called Chicken in remote Alaska. Both Anne and Elizabeth in When Calls the Heart experience that hardship and the resilience they have to build to be able to live in this location, not just because of the environment being harsh, but also because of the people. They both have very, very different upbringings to the people they're living with in these isolated communities. And in Tisha in particular, at one point, Anne is told that the people can be meaner than the weather. So that really goes to show you how difficult it was for her. Both Anne and Elizabeth are teachers, and they see it as their calling, and how important it is that education is brought to these communities that are really isolated, that it's a resource that they need to have in those locations, even though a lot of people don't value it. Anne has to develop a lot of moral courage because she experiences a lot of prejudice. There are a lot of Native American people that are on the fringes of this town, and there's a lot of racial prejudice. But because Anne allows some of these Native American children into her classroom, and she falls in love with a half Inuit man, she experiences a lot of prejudice. And so she builds a lot of moral courage in this story. It's really remarkable. It reads like an old-fashioned novel. I love this little edition that I don't know, it took me a while to find one. I think it might have been on World of Books. It's got so much in it. It's a love story. It has very vivid characters that are on the sidelines. And at times you'll forget that this is a memoir and that you are reading about someone's actual life because it reads so much like a novel. So those are some of my recommendations that if you liked that, you might like this, and I hope that you enjoyed this. Hopefully there is a recommendation you can take out of this video. I'd love to know if there's a book in here that you haven't heard of before. I think that's something that a lot of you comment on, is that quite often I'll mention a book that is not in the mainstream or something that is very backlisted, and there's a few in here that are backlisted. So I'd love to know if any of these are new to you and maybe you're going to pick them up. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful week of reading ahead, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.